Good afternoon, Cherries fans. Well, it's the morning after the night before. We were looking for some favours and we got 50% of them. Watford capitulated 4-0 at the hands of Manchester City. And then we were all hoping that Arsenal could do a job on Aston Villa. But sadly, it wasn't to be. I mean, Arsenal were just Arsenal, weren't they? And it's leaving Bournemouth in a position whereby it's not impossible, but it's improbable. And with me to discuss that and a sort of first look preview of the weekend's game, because there'll be some more content nearer the weekend, we've got perennial optimist Morgan Scott with me. How are you, Morgan?
Yeah, morning, everyone. Well, it's now or never, isn't it? We have to win at Goodison. We never won there before, so it's now or never. Man City did us they were class last night. Not for 1 minute did I think they wouldn't win, but the only annoying thing is it wasn't by maybe 5 or 6, because that would have really helped us even more. But no, it's so tight down there at the bottom. I thought fair play to Villa last night against a really rubbish Arsenal side. That they looked quite dangerous. Luckily, it wasn't 2-0 to be fair. But yeah, no. Feeling confident going into the weekend as always.
I certainly like your confidence. So we're going to take a look at the league table now. And yeah, that's where it stands. Aston Villa's win meant that they now leap above Watford in the league table. And look at that. The teams that got promoted 5 years ago are the teams that are in the relegation zone. It's funny sometimes how football works. But yeah, there it is. We are currently 19th. And you know what, Morgan, in a way, Watford conceding sort of 3 or 4 didn't really matter, because we needed Watford to drop points anyway for both their games, and even a 2-0 for Man City would have been enough, because that would have meant if they lost on the final day and we won, naturally our goal difference would have aligned, and on goals scored we would have been top. But Aston Villa threw a spanner in the works, and I always said to myself, look, if they manage to get 4 or more points from these last 2 games, they deserve it. And that's what I said against Watford. Watford don't look likely to get it. They look bereft. And you know what? What would you be feeling if your team were Watford last night? Say if Bournemouth were Watford and we put in a performance like that against Manchester City, I would be absolutely appalled and devastated.
I would, yeah. And to be honest with you, Sam, I think we were really, it was mentioned in commentary, City were always going to come back fighting the class side. You look at Pep Guardiola as a manager and Jurgen Klopp in the Prem, they're like the best manager that I've seen in the Prem for a very long time, since like Ferguson, etc., Mourinho. So you look, they're very good quality managers. But going to your question, I think Watford last night, they looked kind of like they didn't care. There wasn't any fight. I reckon, although Bournemouth were quite lucky in a way, because we could have played City and we might not be sat here today thinking, we're still in with a chance, because they could have beaten us like 4-0. We did really well against City. How we didn't take a point off them, I don't know. Right. And as for the second, that was a bit of a shame, really, because that could have helped us on goal difference. I checked in with Kirk last night, Bournemouth version of Gary Neville, and he gave me some what Bournemouth mathematically need, so Villa couldn't relegate us, etc. I kind of knew, but he showed it was stats. The thing that concerns me is that I think it would go down to goals against scored or something.
Yeah.
And that could be quite concerning, because we haven't got that many goals this season. Me as ever waffling on, but to answer your question properly, I would be ashamed if that was Bournemouth last night. I'd be like, just go away kind of thing, because like that was embarrassing. And Bournemouth performance against team, that Southampton performance, can I just say, it wasn't the worst performance we've seen all season by far. It was a good performance. Although, up
until the drinks break, I thought we absolutely dominated. And in terms of possession, we seemed to be camped in their half, and we got the ball into dangerous areas, but we didn't quite get as many shots. I mean, they were brilliant defensively, I've got to say.
Yeah, I think it was that centre half what's his name?
Walker Peters?
Nah, that's the fullback. Vestergaard, yeah. Wow, I can pronounce it. I wanted to touch on that. I thought he's a very, very... Bournemouth aren't a very tall team. They could do with someone like myself. Although you've got likes of Philip Billen, Dom Solanke, you haven't got much height in that team. Ake, although he's quite small, brings a little bit more. I think he wins pretty much every header that he's ever asked to. But as for that, you look at that team, Bournemouth would just get him, couldn't flip the ball on. Although Sam Sturridge's goal, at the end, they did win the flick on. I think the commentary touched on it, Bournemouth. But then, I don't know why we tried to do them long throws all the time, because that just didn't seem to work.
I've got to say, our identity has definitely changed over the last year. Do you remember sort of a few seasons ago, we would always play the short corner, always, and we deployed that tactic to try to drag the defenders out and then create more space in the box for people like Nathan Ake and Steve Cook to, try to head it in or get a flick on or something. But these days we pump the ball in the box every time, and we do this long throw technique where the throws aren't actually that long. They're not great.
Since I've been watching football, I only remember these one good throw of the ball, and that was Rory Delap for Stoke City when he used to spend about half an hour wiping the ball to make sure it was perfect and then sending it in. And them throws were absolutely amazing, and it worked for them because they had tall people. I think Peter Crouch, potentially, who's my height, so he's always going to win the header. But I think Lloyd Kelly, although fair play to the lad, he's 21 trying to put a ball in, it just doesn't work. He must have had about 30, 40 goes. And do you know what the problem is? You put it into the Southampton box and it just comes straight back out again. And then you're jogging back into position. And we know how vulnerable Bournemouth are in their back four defensively. So if you're sending the two centre-halves up, Steve Cook and Lloyd Kelly, you only got Rico and Stacey. And although how I rate Rico, not the worst defender I ever seen, him and Stacey at the back against people like Danny Inn and worse strikers like, I don't know, Sergio Aguero, Mason Greenwood, etc., kind of scares me. Because you can't have your fullback just relying on them and then maybe Lerma to take a professional foul. Do you know what I mean? And then that puts him on a booking. So it's a vulnerable situation just over a little throw. And although Eddie's a qualified manager, it's up to Eddie what he wants to do. As a fan, it infuriates me. What's the point? We're not going to win the header. You can do it against some teams, but you can't do it against every team.
Yeah, you're right. It's the footballing style is something, and you know what? I mean, for all that we talk about how unlucky we've been and VAR and stuff, we deserve to be in the position that we're in. And we've had games numerous other times this season where we've not pulled it out of the bag, and we've been pedestrian, we've been slow. I think it was all those first 3 or 4 games after Project Restart, showed the worst of AFC Bournemouth, and then the games since have shown the promise that we had shown in other parts of the season. So it's almost like the season's just basically been shrunk down into that 9 games, and that sums us up. And we haven't had the rub of the green sometimes, but we haven't been playing well enough. And attacking wise, we've not been as good. And you know what? Watford, they were poor. I do think they're worse than us this season. And Villa, I thought, were on a par, but they pulled it out of the bag last night against an Arsenal side that, they looked fairly weak. They had 6 changes. They are a team that wants to be top 4, but they are nowhere near top 4. The squad depth that they've got is absolutely, they haven't got any squad depth. And you just knew that Arsenal, you never know what team's going to go out there. And I don't even think they registered a shot on goal yesterday. And Villa did what they had to do. They scraped to 1-0, and now they're in pole position to get out of in trouble. And it's just so typical, isn't it? But will Arsenal do us a favour at the weekend?
Well, that's what I was just going to touch on, Sam. After that performance, I was expecting good things from Arsenal yesterday, if I'm honest with you. Same for Man City. I thought Arsenal would do well because they just beat Man City. That's a big deal for Arsenal. And then I knew Man City would respond. But as for Arsenal, I thought yesterday they were probably worse than what Bournemouth had been offering.
Yeah.
So that kind of concerns me because we're relying on another team to do us a favour. And although that we shouldn't rely on that, we need that to happen if we want any chance of staying up. So Bournemouth can go and win 3-4-0 at Everton. Fantastic. But if Arsenal put in a performance like that and let Watford, even if Watford draw to them, we'll be going down, won't we?
Yeah, I thought that maybe Arsenal beating Man City in the Cup would be good because Man City would be angry, which they were, and I thought that it may give Arsenal some momentum. But with the FA Cup final only around the corner at the end of the month for Arsenal, it looked like he was resting some players. But then conversely, I thought, well, maybe these fringe players that are getting some minutes for Arsenal, this is their chance to shine in front of Mikel Arteta and to show him, look, I am worthy of a first 11 spot like in the FA Cup final. But not many of them last night showed that they were anywhere near. I mean, the post came to Villa's rescue, and that that would have helped us a lot. But in the end, Aston Villa did deserve it, and if they managed to get a point against West Ham, it's just 1 point is needed, whether it's Watford or whether it is Aston Villa. Now, the only thing I can say is that, whilst Arsenal did look really poor against Villa, Watford were a shambles. And I cannot see them getting a point. And I think Arsenal are going to be angry. They're going to be needing some momentum ahead of the FA Cup final the week after. I think they'll win that, Arsenal. So, the attention now is, for me, it's not on Watford. It's all about what Villa do. But West Ham, what have they got to play for? Can you realistically see them getting a result at home against Aston Villa?
That's a tough question. I think it depends on tonight's result. If West Ham can beat United or get a result, a draw or something off United, I'm not sure. To be honest with you, it's really hard to keep a track of how every other team have been doing. Bournemouth, my main focus at the moment. But yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say. Villa, after last night, they scrapped a 1-0. It wasn't the cleanest. You talk about that post. I don't know how that header didn't go in, but you talk about that, for example. To be honest with you, the way our luck's going, Villa could scrape a 1-0 or get a draw, and that might be enough to send us down. It's so tight down at the bottom. One thing I was going to say, in terms of the FA Cup, although Arsenal should go into that Watford game with a good mindset, after last night, I'm not sure they will, and that kind of disappoints me a bit. Not as a Bournemouth fan, but as someone who likes football, because you think of Pep Guardiola, so they just lost 3-0 in the cup final, yeah, but they came back last night and they didn't just offer a decent 3-0 performance; they offered a 5 or 6-0 performance, and it was 120%. And you could see that every single one. I thought Phil Foden last night looked as good as I thought he looked as good. I didn't want to talk too much about City because we know how good they are and we're not City fans. But I thought he, next season, will probably fill a position of David Silva. And for a 19, 21-year-old lad, that is pretty incredible to fill.
Yeah, I just hope he gets the minutes because, we need this English talent coming through. And it's great that he's at Man City playing around such star players. But quite often...
Send him over to Dean Court.
Yeah, well, quite often we've had these players that that have been in worldy teams, surrounded by international talent. Yet they've never really got the minutes. But Phil Foden seems to be getting the minutes at the moment, and I saw him in the England match at Dean Court, the under-21s earlier last year, and he looked quality then. And I just pray that he, still gets the minutes. And if these Premier League clubs actually play this English talent, then the future is bright. But obviously, as you say, we're not here to talk about City.
Well, that's something I would quite like to just talk about for 20 seconds. In terms of the you talk about young talent. Bournemouth have got a good amount of young talent. I'm not going to play that down whatsoever. You look at, obviously, we know we got first teamers like Brooks, Danjuma, etc. Lloyd Kelly coming through. Amazing. Well, they're in the first team. But then you look at people like Gavin Kilkenny, who I actually quite rate, Sam Sturridge, Keelan O'Connell, etc. I think Bournemouth, you look at Sam Sturridge, maybe Eddie should give him a start on Sunday. That seems very optimistic, and people are probably going to argue. But you look at Callum Wilson. You look at Callum Wilson, like, no offence. Yes, he came off the bench against City. To be honest with you, I think Eddie should start it like he did against City, if I'm honest. You start a little bit weaker, and then you make the changes. So you bring Brooks on and Wilson in the second half, and they can cause problems because Brooks looks knackered after 45. Eddie can't have him on because he's just not doing anything. He has to come off, and I hate saying that about Brooks because he's my favourite player. However, we need to start weak against Everton, and yeah, maybe start Sam Sturridge. Give him a go.
You know what?
He looks hungry.
I would like to see, Sam Surridge start, and he's shown that in the minutes that he's played that he can hit the back of the net. I think that our problem, scoring goals is apart from the Leicester game, a bit of a problem, but not conceding though is always a worry. Now with Callum, he's had no service, but in the last 3 games, he's probably had about 6 good chances, and he's barely hit the target. So why wouldn't Surridge and Solanke go up front, the SAS?
That's a very good question. To be honest with you, our striking department is a bit touch and go. Solanke, yes, he's done it. Without him, we wouldn't have had this hope. However, let's be realistic. Solanke's played over 40 games for Bournemouth this season and got 2 goals. For a striker in the Premier League, that isn't good enough. That's dreadful. It really is, and you've got to be realistic how bad that is for a striker in the Prem. You probably expect that from the conference, if that. So you're talking that. I don't know how many goals Wilson scored this season. Callum, just to reiterate that. Yeah. But again, and I'll touch on this. He since his England call up, I think it's gone to his head. I don't think he wants to talk about I don't think he likes being at Bournemouth, if I'm honest. I look at him and he hardly smiles. He's quite frustrated all the time. To be honest with you, it'd be really, really interesting to see. I think the dressing room might have been lost, if I'm honest. I think that might have a part to play. I like Eddie Howe, and I'm not going to sit here and criticise him because he's done wonders for our club. Really, really fantastic, and I hope he stays for a very long time. However, I look at a few players. Asmir Begovic, he had a falling out with him, sent him out on loan, doesn't want to know him. Harry Arter, amazing guy, really, really incredible baller, midfield, always puts in fight. Yes, sometimes he gets frustrated, but don't we all? That shows his passion for the game. He fell out with Eddie. He's gone out on loan. If we could have Harry Arter right now, wow, what a difference that might make. And you look at other players, Jordan Ibe. He was so good at Liverpool. Come to Bournemouth, yes, his performance, but I know he's had problems elsewhere with his personal life and stuff, and probably hasn't been the most professional ever. But I think he had a falling out with Eddie quite before that. And I know there's another few. I can't remember any on the top of my head, but he has lost quite a few players. The Ryan Fraser thing, that was probably a massive turn. There's been quite. And although you can talk about factors like the referee and the climate and the weather and the world right now and everything like that, you also got to think what's going on in that dressing room. Because Steve Cook comes out and has something after the Newcastle game. We performed like children, I think he said. Yeah. And Eddie benched him for that. And fair play to Steve Cook for coming out and saying that, because that's what needed to happen. They're not children, they're men. And if that's what Steve Cook, as a professional centre-half captain of the club, wants to come out and say, that's up to him.
I agree with Joshua King said something not quite like that. Joshua King said, something that, if we carry on playing like this, we'll get relegated. Yeah, he didn't say we played like children, but I think the sentiment was exactly the same. But Eddie decided to agree with one statement and then criticise another player for another. And like you say, with the personalities that Eddie signed, I think, the majority of the players that you mentioned are players that come with some pedigree and some previous experience and a price tag. Asmir Begovic came with the experience, Jermaine Defoe, even Lee Tomlin when we signed him, Jordan Ibe, players like that. They are players that have come with some expectation already, whereas the Frasers and the Arters, I think that, that's a situation that sometimes has gone a bit sour. But those are the players that I think Eddie deals best with, the ones where he brings them up, which is where I think he thrives better.
Well, you look at Jermaine Defoe and Sylvan Diston, probably the most experienced Bournemouth players Bournemouth have ever had. And I don't know if this is true, but it's a very, very good source of mine. I won't really let it live, but apparently Eddie, they were saying to Eddie, you don't play it around the back and you just play the long ball and you try and do things different. And they were suggesting, and Eddie was like, no, not doing that. It's not how we play. And for Jermaine Defoe to be told that, yeah, a manager, yes, he has the final calls and decisions, and he's got people above him. But if your players want to try something, if a manager came up to me, I'm doing my coaching badge, and said, "Oh, Morgan, do you mind trying this?" I'll be like, "Well, we can give it a go. If it doesn't work, then we won't do it again." Or, we might try it again, maybe half the teams in the Prem, and we'll do another, we won't play the long ball all the time. But for people like Distan and Defoe, that's probably, they were another two players I think he didn't get particularly on with. That's why Defoe's, has he left? I think he's gone now.
Yeah, I think he's gone, yeah.
But yes, excuse me. But yeah, I think that's why Eddie's kind of, I'm not saying he needs to go, but I think there's been a bit of a change. Also, changing the captain all the time. As much as I like Simon Francis, let's be realistic. He hasn't Premier League, maybe not quite ready to recover in the Prem. Charlie Daniels and Simon, although I think they've been so good for us over the years through the League One into the Championship, etc. But I think they both had so many injuries now that it's going to be maybe time to think about the next step. And you got Rico and Adam Smith and Stacey ahead of them, so it's always going to be difficult. But we're going to have to sort something out in that dressing room, because something's going to got to take. Regardless if we stay up or we go down. I think, to be honest with you, we really need to sort our squad out, regardless of the situation. I think Eddie needs to sit down with his.
And this is a good chance. Relegation will be a good chance to do that.
Even if we stay up, if I'm honest, Sam, I was thinking this last night. Even if we stay up, let's be realistic. Ake's probably going to go. That's the last time we've seen him in a Bournemouth shirt. £35 million to City. Amazing. I personally think that should be at least 80, but whatever. And then Josh Kin, hate to say it, but I think he's kind of out of it. I don't think he looks the same. I don't think he wants to be there. Go United, go wherever. I don't really care if I'm being realistic. However, and then you look to rebuild. I think you look at the defence. I think that needs an area of work, if I'm honest, in front of Rambo. I wouldn't get rid of Rambo whatsoever. I think he's a very, very good goalkeeper if he wants to stay. Sort out the back four. I'm not sure how, but sort it out. Again, midfield. Billing isn't Prem quality. You look at Gosling, yes, he's a little bit better, but in my opinion, he's still not the same. Lewis Cook, if he stays or not, we could maybe sort him back out to his Matt Sharpner. And then you look up front, if Callum will give us another season or whatever, then maybe. But you look, maybe Sam Sturridge, he wouldn't cost us much to keep. David Brooks, I reckon he'll give us another season. I know we touched on that on the podcast before. I think he will give us another season, because I think he would want to try and help Bournemouth as much as he can to either get back up or stay in the Prem for another season. And same for people like Dan Juma, Chris Mepham, etc. I think Bournemouth will, with a few more people coming in, I think Bournemouth will start to get better. And I think we need that transition period where we get rid of the people like Francis, Daniel, Sideway Sermon, Bambi on I, and then start again. Because I think for season now, we've been kind of trying to keep starting, and I don't think for some reason it's clicked the Bournemouth way.
Yeah, I think that this season he's had to phase in a number of players due to injuries, more than he probably would have loved to have. And you know what? I'm still ridiculously gutted about the situation. And I think the team are individually, they're a lot better individually than the position that we're in. I think that Eddie does have a lot to answer for, but in the same breath, I wouldn't want to necessarily let him go. I mean, I've seen the interviews that he's done, and the guy just looks like he needs a break, even a fortnight's holiday or something. Sometimes I think that the way he's so pivotal and integral to the club, everything is built around him. I think it has its advantages in that what's going on, but equally, I also think it can be a negative thing as well, because he's consumed in a bubble that's created by him, and even there's barely any external influence, even his fellow coaches and mates. I think that there's rumours that he might walk and this and that, and I just think that we would need him for at least another season, because the players that his name alone can attract. Just imagine people know the brand of football that we're capable of playing. If you're a manager in the Premier League and you want to send a player out on loan, you're going to send it to, that player to, a manager that's got a reputation of bringing these players on. And like Eddie, people will want to also play for Eddie Howe. So if we do get relegated, there are so many pluses about being in the Championship. It's unreal. And I'm going to talk about them on another podcast, not least VAR, but I'm sure that will be brought in at some time soon in the Championship. But you know what? Despite the fact we're all thinking doom and gloom, there is still a way.
A little bit of hope. I think that's really important, because I want to I wouldn't, because I don't think I would get anywhere near them, and I don't think it's fair with the situation in the Wild right now. But I would quite like to go and wait for them to come out of training and just be like, guys, you still got a chance here, and have a obviously I'm not sure if Eddie would be able to, because they've probably been told not to, but just and I'm sure Eddie, being the type of guy he is, would of course remain in social 2 meters apart and that, but I'm sure he would actually take time out to speak to me, to be honest with
probably,
you.
Yeah.
He's that type of person, and although he might not be able to stay for long, and I would quite like to say to him, yes, I'm really thanks for everything you've done. We still got this. We're all behind you, and just give him that fan sense of he probably hasn't seen many fans for months now. He probably sees people in town all the time, but just to say, hi Eddie, how are you? Good luck. We're still behind you. Just try to give it as he can do all the training and talk to his players all he wants, but just to have that in the back of his mind. Could you imagine if that was enough to keep us up? Me having a chat with the Bournemouth manager.
Oh, you know what? I think I've got, I really get the feeling with Eddie that he misses the fans, he misses the interaction. And, I think that was almost his vice in some ways, of being able to almost separate himself sort of mentally from the actual game of football and all the, technicalities in his sort of, coaching brain, just to be able to see people smiling inside the stadium and to kind of wave at the children and the old men and women that sit in the same seat they've sat in for the last however many years and stuff. And I think, he is really missing that. But yeah, like I say, there is still a chance, Morgan. And, these are the results that could happen and actually go for us. And it's, it's quite simple, really. If Arsenal were to beat Watford 1-0, and of course, if West Ham were to beat Villa 1-0, and if Bournemouth
to win 3-0,
well, even a 1-0, 1-0s all round would do us, because if we calculate that, this is what would happen. We would finish above that dreaded dotted line. 1-0s all round. It's actually fairly simple. That's how simple it can be.
Nothing simple when VAR's about, Sam.
No, it's not.
If VAR wasn't around, then we wouldn't need to worry. But I think I saw something on Twitter. Could you imagine if Dominic Solanke got a VAR to stop it to keep us in the Prem?
I could imagine it happening. But the equation is simple, and goal difference no longer sort of comes into it, because the teams now cannot finish on the same number of points.
No, is there a way that goals. Is there a way that, I was talking to Kirk about this, is there a way that it would go to a neutral playoff somehow? I don't know if that's possible.
Not between us and anyone anyway. Maybe between Watford and Villa. No
way whatsoever. So, for example, one of them lost 10-0, for being realistic. I'm not, Watford potentially could after that.
You know what? I'm not even sure that can happen now either, because Watford and Villa are on the same amount of points. And obviously,
what if Bournemouth won 6-7-0 and then the other teams lost 20-0? We would definitely stay out.
That's the only equation now. It is so simple. We need to win, and two teams need to lose. Now, if form is anything to go by, I know, Arsenal lost. If league position is, anything to go by, Villa should lose to West Ham, who have got a pretty good, they're in a good vein of form. I know they're playing Man United tonight, and also, Arsenal should beat Watford, but. The thing that we're not even considering is that Bournemouth need to beat Everton. And, our form in the second half against Southampton, when we were 1-0 down, we had 45 minutes to turn it around. I thought we were worse in the second half than we were in the first. And that, that's the problem. And I can just imagine there was a situation before the -17 season in the season before, we got docked 10 points that season, and we needed to win at Carlisle on the final day. And we also needed another game to go for us, whereby Doncaster, who were third, needed to beat Cheltenham, who were right down the bottom. Doncaster lost, and then we, as it happened, only drew anyway with Carlisle. And all I want is for us, the players to give as much chance as possible. If we do our bit, great. We're just waiting on two other favours, one of which I think will probably come in by the way of Watford losing, because as poor as Arsenal are, Watford are poorer, and we're just hoping then that West Ham can do a job like over Aston Villa. But West Ham, what have they got to play for? They're as good as safe.
Yeah, I think if we're being realistic, we're going to have to wait and see what happens. We really are. But I don't know. I'm still trying to work out what game are we going to be on TV? Do you reckon?
Yeah, all the critical matches are going to be on. I think BT Sport have got 2 games, and Sky have got the other 8.
I'm hoping that our game's picked for BT. Do you know why? Because I want to sit on that wall and celebrate like mad when we go up.
Well, you know what? I don't know if this is the case or not. I've watched ever since the Spurs match. I've watched all of the games without the crowd sound on. So I've just been watching the kind of raw feed.
Do us a favour and watch it on a normal. Watch it with the crowd sound on. That might keep us up.
Well, the thing is though, your crowd sounds off. We drew with Spurs. Crowd sounds off. We beat Leicester. Crowd sounds off. We put in a good performance against Man City. Then for the Southampton game, I had to watch for the crowd sounds on because the crowd sounds off thing didn't work for me. So I'm hoping it's on.
You think that might have mucked it up?
Yeah, you know what? I'm looking at everything now.
Yeah. To be honest with you, you look at I reckon you look. Eddie says he misses the fans, and that's the same for every single team. I know. I reckon Bournemouth. Eddie said we need the fans. Yes, we do need the fans. You look at some of the performances that we offered. Spurs. If we were in there, we would have rocked that place, and we could have come out with a 2-1.
Yeah.
Or 2-0. Was it 0-0? Yeah, it was, wasn't it? And then you look at Man U, although they were class that game, we could have maybe made it more exciting and got another couple and made it maybe like a 4-5 or a 5-4 or whatever. And then you look at what else have we had? The City game.
Yeah.
That if we were in the Etihad that night, I think we would have given them the courage to at least get the equaliser, if not win the game, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
And for the Southampton game, also, just to add there, I would say that was quite important as well. That we had, because I even if we got a point of Southampton, I would have accepted that. Although it's not the best, after Rambo gave everything, he saved that penalty, even put in a man of the match performance. Yeah, I was so mortified. Did you see him at the end when he was in tears and he ran around his Suncorp? Like, although it's heartbreaking, he gave everything that game, and I felt so sorry for him. He's only quite young, and he gave everything, and Bournemouth weren't exactly helping him out. So you got to look at everything. But if we were in there, I think we would have definitely got a point at Saints, and I think we would have done all right at City. I think we would have turned it around and actually won.
I think in some ways that, even though if we had got a point against Southampton, it would still leave us needing to win the last game. So that hasn't really changed. And also it would still leave us needing other teams to do us a favour. Now, Morgan, how would you feel if you were a Watford, say like, I don't know, we lose or we win, whatever. If we win and the other teams get a point, it doesn't matter. What if Villa draw their last game of the season? And what if Watford draw their last game of the season? Villa will, of course, stay up because they've got the better goal difference. How would you feel as a Watford fan seeing this incident that happened on the first game after Project Restart, when that goal, Hawkeye, went wrong? Sheffield United should have won the match 1-0. It wasn't given, and Villa have got an extra point and have basically sent Watford down. What would you feel like as a Watford fan seeing that again? You'll be haunted forever, wouldn't you?
Yeah, to be honest with you, what I don't understand in that incident. Now, I don't know why, but why the fact that Michael Oliver, who was the referee on the day, I know for a fact, didn't go to the VAR screen and have a look at that himself and could see it was over the line, because the referee at Stockley Park could have sent him that picture, and he could go straight over to the monitor. That's gone over the line. Give the goal. All he needs to do is go over and have a look for 30, not even 30 seconds. I think Kevin Friend the other day sent someone off. He had one look and gave him a red card for Norwich.
Yeah.
So the fact that that only needed looking at, or he didn't even need to go and look at it. The referee in the ear could have had VAR goal, and then it's done. But why VAR? In my opinion, we talk about VAR so much, and it
spoiled it.
It makes me quite angry, if I'm honest, because it ruins our game. But what really annoys me, because last night, Phil Foden got the fourth goal went in, and I thought, I'm not going to celebrate. VAR's just going to chalk this out, and then it stood, and then I was happy. But you're thinking, Alan on the podcast last week was saying 3 minutes to celebrate one goal. It's annoying. And you look at that, for example, why can't VAR give that? I know it's goal line technology, it's got to touch the watch and whatever, but if it's gone over the line, why can't VAR say that's a goal? Because VAR's there to help the on-field referee, not to sit there and just get exactly for sitting. And that really makes me angry in a way, because if that was Bournemouth, I would be absolutely off my mind. Now, I had an experience of speaking to a referee through AFC Bournemouth called Anthony Taylor, who's a very high official in the Prem. Yeah. And he explained VAR and the difference when he's refereeing in the Champions League, Europa League, and for UEFA in international competitions, etc. Said that the difference of the way they use VAR is so different, and the Prem have told them not to go over to the screen unless it's really urgent to not delay the game. But what would we rather see? Let's be realistic. We see a referee. We see that annoying little purple screen. I'm sick of seeing it. I must have seen it about too many times to last me a lifetime. You see that stupid screen that tells you about a toenail being offside. Now, let's be realistic. Do we want to see a referee sat there talking to someone that we can't even hear? Or do we want him to go over to the pitch high monitor that would take him the same amount of time, talk to the man, have a look himself, and then come to a decision together to make the on-field decision, rather than him? Because it doesn't matter if he's standing at the bench having a look at the screen, or if he's standing by the player. The linesman can control the players to save any trouble if that did happen. The fourth official can step onto the pitch to make sure the managers are behaving, and then the referee and the VAR have a chat. You've got a VAR, you've got an assistant VAR, and a referee. You've got 3 grown men to make a decision, and we're talking 4 or 5 minutes sometimes before a decision's made about the tiny little thing.
Yeah, and that's what's scary, and even with the goal that Josh King put in after Stanislas, crossed that ball, it's which frame do you use?
I knew that was off.
As soon as he kicks the ball, or is it when when the ball leaves his foot? Because, a person, kicking a football, there are, several frames where you can start and stop it at, and that he could be onside, offside. And I don't know, in terms of the Hawkeye thing though, VAR can overall Hawkeye, and in that Villa Sheffield United, it can.
Why? Exactly. So why that didn't happen, I don't know. And for Michael Oliver to say at half time, Hawkeye,
well, that's what I've heard. Yeah,
the goal line technology system wasn't working.
Well, I mean, it's
that's the first time that's so. Can I go back to was it 2008 when Lampard's goal went in over the line against Germany? Now that was clearly over the line, but I don't know how that wasn't allowed. But you talk about that, it was so obvious. The keeper was over the line. Either Michael Oliver needs glasses, or I don't mean to sound rude, but it just seemed really annoying, because that could have been beneficial. Could that have helped us out in our season?
It could have, but I mean, I feel sorry more for Watford, who now need to better.
Oh, let's not feel sorry for Watford. They're going to get better than me in the Championship next season.
Well, you know what? I've actually grown to like Watford a little bit. Not sure why. I've been chatting to many of their fans. I feel sorry that could be the fit. I mean, look,
they don't Watford shirt for Christmas.
Yeah. They don't deserve to be in the Premier League, and nor do we. And maybe Villa's recent form dictates that they should. And decisions aside, Villa possibly do deserve it. But when you've got I haven't got a watch on me, but obviously they've got their watch on their arm or whatever, and it's supposed to flash. Now Hawkeye lost sight of the ball with its 7 or 8 cameras. It lost sight of the ball. Now, surely in that circumstance, there needs to be something that says, no signal or something, almost like a baby monitor. When there's no signal,
I don't think we need a baby. I don't think we need a baby. That's a great idea,
but
yeah,
it's just the simple, factor of technology that, if the ball's in the box, Hawkeye can see that ball at all times. If there's ever a moment where it can't see the ball, it needs to have a no signal. And if there's a chance whereby it's looking like, oh my God, that could have been over, at that point, the ref should go over,
yeah, 100%.
just because it's so. I mean, to me, that just sounds like a
Can you put
really
the
simple
photo
thing
back
to
on
do.
quickly? Can we just have a look at it
Yeah,
one
sure.
time if you have it?
I mean, look at
Right,
that.
so can you zoom in a little bit if you can? I don't know if you can, please. Yeah, so if you keep zooming in, how far can you go?
I'll give it a go.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that's cool. So you look at where the goalkeeper, he's clearly both feet are over the line and the ball.
Yeah.
So you can tell. The only defense I can have to the on-field referee is you got. Is that I think that's McGee. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 players in front of the goal. I don't know why the assistant can't get involved, if I'm being honest. You got a linesman, what's he there for? Just to put offside where like the VAR check it anyway, so he's not really that important. How the VAR can't get involved in that for a fan who's watched football, not just for Bournemouth, but since my whole life, that really kind of upsets me, if I'm honest, because that's a decision and that I would be so angry about if it was in our, for any team. Doesn't matter if I like them or not. Even if that was Southampton, I would feel bad for, or well, maybe not so much, but that Southampton fan we had on after the show last week was actually all right, wasn't he? But yeah, to be honest with you, that it's just another factor of the season.
Yeah,
and that.
It's one of many. It's one of many things that we've kind of moaned at, but the fact is, we aren't good enough. And Villa, when you speak to them about that VAR incident and how fortunate they've been, they refer back to a previous match against Crystal Palace whereby they didn't get the rub of the green when they felt as though they had. And they say it evens out, but the thing is, VAR is there to get the right decision. And so many times this season, we've seen handballs given in really spurious circumstances, and then you've got handballs not given, like David Silva.
So when we talk about Adam Smiths, and then you're not giving David Silva, although it wasn't as I don't understand
clear and obvious. Why should it be clear and obvious? Why can't it just be this is because basically what they're doing is undermining the ref.
Well, it's a bit like the government saying that everyone meant to wear a mask on a bus, and half the people don't. I went on a bus the other day, and people don't wear a mask, so people don't do what you're told anyway. It's a bit like that. You're making one rule for one game and one rule for another. The same. It fails me. It being really black and white, everything should be the same. So for example, one thing that I don't really understand talking about masks. It sounds a bit silly. Like every other team, I don't know if you've seen. Every team comes up to goes to a game in either most teams wear a mask for whatever reason. Bournemouth don't to any of their away games and into any of their home games. And although it probably doesn't matter, they get tested so often. You talk about the protocol and everyone doing the correct thing. The Premier League should be making sure every single club are doing exactly the same, so it's not unfair. And you talk about that, and then that brings back to VAR. To be honest with you, VAR needs so much work on. They either sort it out or they bin it. I would rather Bournemouth scored another 10 goals that weren't meant to stand than we got this stupid system adding on 9-10 minutes, keeping people like us in ground till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night over some toenail. What's the world going to come to? Are we going to start talking about fingernails being offside or, the Premier League badge or whatever? It's that there's got to be a line drawn under what's offside and what isn't, because it's ruining the game. And to be honest with you, people are going to lose interest. Football's got so much into it.
It's all about the undermining of the referee, and the referee gives if he chooses it's not a penalty or it is a penalty, it goes to VAR. And if it's a situation where you're saying, okay, well, I can see that it's not clear and obvious, therefore we're gonna basically, if it is obvious, then the referee will be undermined, and they will change his what he originally signaled. But I just think VAR should basically determine what's right and what's wrong, and not like, okay, whether there's like 50% doubt with the referee, and if there is, well, we might not give. I don't know. It just seems a bit wrong. And
well, there was a penalty last night in the Watford game that Will Hughes on Raheem Sterling. Now, when I first saw it, I was like, yeah, that's a penalty because it's Raheem Sterling. He's a quality person. He's driving the tackle in. It wasn't a penalty. It was a slight contract, and Sterling made the most out of it. And because Sterling was quicker, the referee's kind of been tricked into giving that. The VAR, in my opinion, should not be telling him to go and have a look at that, and he could have come to a correct decision. Although that would have made us quite angry because we needed a result last night. I looked at another incident. There was a handball in the second half. Did you see it?
Yeah.
I don't know who it was, but I thought that was more a penalty than the one in the first half.
Yeah.
And I don't know. You're talking about accidental handball. That was as bad as Howie Wilson, And if you're given that one, so we talk about Howie Wilson, you talk about Adam Smith, and then you talk about David Silvers and that one. Like, it's the same. It's exactly the same. And why they're not being given, I don't know. And the fact that before the referee had no help apart from the other 3 officials.
Yeah,
he's got someone in his ear now, and it really infuriates me, if I'm honest with you.
Look, we've been awful this season, right? We have been awful, and we deserve to be where we are. But the fact that we're talking about this so much means it's not.
We'll be talking about it next season as well, by the looks of it. They'll probably introduce it to the Championship.
Oh well, I bloody hope not. But if they do, I hope they deploy it a lot better. And the fact that we're just, going on about it, and and we're not even getting upset for us. We're also getting upset for other teams as well. And the fact that it's,
to be honest,
the system's wrong.
Yeah, it really is. To be honest with you, I don't think any football people want to see our game ruined. I think, what really annoys me is it worked so well in the World Cup. It really did. And do you know what? I like UEFA. People moan that I go to UEFA and all the commentary on BT Sport. Moan about how long it takes for the referee, but they go over to the monitors quite often. And do you know what? If you're going to add on 10 minutes at the end of a game, I don't mind that if you're going over and you're spending half your time at a monitor because you're making an actual decision yourself. But Mourinho said it. It's not the manager guy on the pitch anymore. It's the referee at Stockley Park outside Heathrow Airport. So it's very, very tricky. And I like the way UEFA do it better than the Prem. I thought in the World Cup, in the Women's World Cup, was it a year or two ago? That was good. And obviously the Men's World Cup, etc. I think VAR worked so well then because you're making decisions and you're not mucking around with it. In the Prem, they have a monitor literally takes them 20 seconds to go and have a look. And it's only been used, to my knowledge, I think the first time it was ever used was when Norwich got a sending off when we played them at Carrow Road. I saw Kevin Friend do it the other night as well for Norwich to send a player off. And I think Chris Kavanagh sent off Ian Nketiah in an Arsenal game. He originally gave a yellow and then he gave a red. So I think they've been the only 3 times I can think of all season where Premier League referee has gone over to the monitor and made a decision. And the fact that that's only over cards is pathetic. You can go over that and use it for offside, for penalties. And this is what what's the head of his name? Mike Riley and the PFL need to think about next season about how to make the game good, fair, but not by talking about bloody toenails all the time. Because it's just boring, to be honest with you. I kind of lost my Bournemouth scored. You saw when Solanke scored, I did that celebration. It could have been chalked off. I was so happy, but it could have been chalked off, and that's always running through the back of your mind. Could you imagine? And on the final day of the season, Villa get a penalty that's overturned or something really dramatic to our season over VAR, how angry we'd be. Or could you imagine if it works in our favour for a change? It could work in our favour, but I doubt it.
Pre-VAR, we always had a go at the ref, and the ref got a bit of stick. And, until a day later, that would be that. And we'd always have certain refs. Oh, God, we got Michael Oliver this week. Oh no, we got Clattenburg. He shafted us in the last game, whatever. But those kind of things didn't last too long. But VAR has got, but VAR has got this kind of legacy.
I thought he was a very, very good referee. That's only been, go on.
VAR has got this legacy now that we're talking about it for a lot longer than what we talked about the mistakes of the referee, and a lot of fans have got conspiracy theories like the ref was corrupt, and he's on their side and he's on their side. VAR has now actually made that conversation worse. Because there are calculated decisions. Like these referees have got a split second to make, like a judgment. They've got their fourth official to help them, and then that's it. Now VAR have got a lot longer. They've got 1 minute, 2 minutes to make a decision, and often they're still coming to the wrong decision. So people are now thinking it's even more corrupt now, and all this kind of stuff. And it's just. It's not fit for purpose. And, like I even liked it where in Europe they trialled having those, I don't know what you'd call them, the fifth assistant or whatever behind the goal. Or
yeah. I think they were called line goal people, and they had I can't really remember, but Anthony Taylor was explaining it when he was on the call with myself a few months ago.
What was their role for? Was it just for the ball crossing the line?
They would I think it was for when the ball went across the line or whatever, to make sure. I don't know why maybe they didn't have gold line technology, or they had both. I'm not sure why, to be honest with you. I thought it was quite a stupid thing, but I felt quite sorry for some of them because they were standing there and really like Russia when it was freezing cold and just standing there like with this little stick. But no, they had this like little. I'm using a pen, but it was like this little fin, and maybe it buses when it crosses the line. I don't know what it was. It was kind of hideous. But
it was really weird,
should we go back to that? Should we have like another 10 officials rather than this VAR? Should we have
probably get it right?
Should we have double linesmen and then either side, and then got two people either side of the goal? Could you imagine? So we talk about that incident against the Villa incident, and could you imagine if there was a man behind the goal in that time? That would have stood, wouldn't it? So maybe VAR. So. Firstly, why VAR hasn't given that, I will never know. Don't think anyone will. Secondly, why the assistant hasn't seen that, I don't know, if I'm honest. But maybe they shouldn't think about introducing them back. If the goal line decision system, and it's all right for the Prem to come out and say, this is the first time it's failed in thousands of games. Doesn't need to fail. It shouldn't be failing. In this technology era, that should not be failing, because that could be a goal to keep. Could you imagine the final day of the season and that's us against Everton?
What we need in football is just more transparency of the decisions that happen behind the scenes. And I always think that with VAR decisions, there should be a panel of 3 people that are watching completely independently. Maybe one of them a referee, maybe 2 ex-pros that have got no, sort of allegiances, to either club. And they just have, 2 buttons in front of them. They'll say, like offside, not offside.
Apple Watch, get an Apple.
You penalty, no penalty. And at least you've got, then you take the majority verdict of all those 3 people, and then that's, that's that
Get
decided.
An Apple Watch. Get an Apple Watch where they just give you the 2 buttons. To be honest with you, God, my phone's going crazy with notifications. Sorry. In terms of with the VAR, I don't think it should even be them talking for so long. I think there should be button to the referee's watch. Goal, offside, need to chat.
Simple. Yeah,
and just simple little things. And do you know what really annoys me is you got so much decent technology these days, and why it's failing is VAR is technology. Now,
have you seen it in rugby, whereby when it goes they talk and we hear the reasoning for their decision, and they roll it back, and you can hear exactly why they're saying it, and there's a lot of respect within rugby. But within football, they just kind of rock and roll this footage that sometimes isn't even fit for purpose because it's at a stupid angle or whatever. And we still, look at it time and time again. All we want to do is hear the decisions why, and then there's a bit of accountability. But at the moment, we're just seeing this like footage, and we've got no idea of the reasoning behind it. And it's just conjecture from commentators, from fans. It's just
What? It really infuriates me. If I'm honest with you. There's not much that infuriates me, but why the hell?
If it is happening, if it is
boring, and do you know what's really annoying? We discuss it every single week about VAR. I thought VAR this season was actually going to be all right, and now it's no words. Hopefully, that Well, whatever division we're in, we're probably going to get it next season.
I really hope
so
not. I really hope not, because that's been kind
we're gonna
a
have
bit
to
of
accept
solace
it one
I've
way
got
or
from
another.
getting relegated. Yeah,
But
a bit of solace I've got from getting relegated. If we do, I mean, there are loads of plus points, and we can do another video at some point if we do go down, to basically say why it's not all bad. And you know what, I'm looking forward to being in a division where,
can I do one to say that we are
you know,
staying
where
up?
we fell in love with football. Yeah, you can always do that. But yeah, go on. Have a closing comment, Morgan. Go on.
Oh, closing comment.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that VAR needs some work, and we need to hear what the officials are saying to each other. I think that's really important. Final point. We start a little bit weaker, in my opinion, against Everton. Maybe start Sam Savage, as we mentioned. Bring on Callum Wilson and David Brooks in the second half. Yes, we never won at Goodison, but Bournemouth always offer a good performance when they don't need to. They're always a bit I don't know why, but they seem to butt their ideas up when they really have to, and they do things that surprise us at all times. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 away win. I'm going to go for a penalty through VAR, because that's just us, and I'm going to go for the one that's going to secure it is in the 92nd minute, and it's going to be Dominic Solanke off his elbow.
Right,
but that will get chalked off for VAR, so it's going to come off his knee. Maybe he can come off his knee then.
What happens at the Emirates and also at the London Stadium? What's going to happen there?
Wow, it's a matter of opinion. So I reckon West Ham are pretty. It depends what happens tonight. It's all arm and arm. We don't know, but I'm going to go for West Ham. I think they've been solid. I think Antonio confirmed. So I'm going to go for they got Villa, yeah. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 West Ham win.
Yeah.
Is it at Villa? No, it's away, ain't it?
Yeah,
it's
the London Stadium.
Yeah, cool. And I'm going to go. Hate to say this, but I reckon Arsenal are going to get a cheeky 1-0 win. Aubameyang in the 92nd minute to keep Bournemouth up.
It's still possible. It's still possible.
All I'm going to say is I haven't given up hope. I don't think anyone should just yet. It's getting realistic now. Bournemouth we can't sit here week after week and say that we need to win. We have to win. It's as clear as that. Be interesting to see what Kirk thinks about that goal, by the way. We'll have to maybe have a chat with him about that. But as I say, you know, whatever division we're in that season, I'm going to stick with the Prem for now. But if we are in the Championship, we just need to remember how proud we are of our player, Eddie Howe, and how, as fans, we have been on this roller coaster to the Prem for 5.5 years. And it's just been fantastic. Thanks for having me on, Sam. Up the cherries. And let's hope it's just about enough. Up the cherries. Thank you.
Lovely, Morgan. That was Morgan. Thank you very much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And yeah, so that is the day after. That is how we're all feeling. We're talking about football. We're talking about technology, and the fact that technology dominated that last 20 minutes of conversation shows how much of a burden it has become in the Premier League. So, you know, whatever happens next season, if we stay in, I hope they sort it out. If we go down and we're without it for a bit, then you know what? I'm not exactly going to be disappointed. Stay tuned to the channel over the next few days. There's going to be more content, including the funnel forecast. There's going to be another extended preview of the weekend with another supporter. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Up the cherries and keep the faith. Come on.